that the average person that doesn't know who you're interviewing would ask anyways.
Yeah.
So it's nice to talk as least as possible before the podcast. Is what I've learned.
So how much research do you usually do before the podcast?
Very little.
Like 10, 15 minutes type
Just
thing?
enough. As a matter of fact, I don't even do the research. I have my assistant do it. And just basically I give her the parameters of, the type of people that I would be interested in learning more about.
Yep.
I'd be genuinely curious about, and wanting to learn from. And then she goes out and finds them, and that's all I know.
Oh, that's
Do you get like cliff notes from her?
Yes, for the most part, it's like, oh, they've done X amount in business, or they're from here, just very generic things, and the main expertise that they're in, or whatever. And then that's what makes me, okay, I would like to give the stamp of approval to then go ahead and get her scheduled.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you said you put a pause on it right now for all the stuff you're doing. You plan on picking it back up?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I have the studio already, so
why
it
not,
would be
right?
stupid of me not to use it.
Yeah.
But I definitely put a pause on it because I want to make sure that I, give this the right foundation. Looking to hire people now, and it's not easy. I'm actually doing all the acquisition stuff right now myself. My background is in sales, so it's not super hard. I just kind of don't fully enjoy it anymore as far as sales goes, but I do at the same time. I'm naturally I think gifted in that area, so it's just kind of setting those parameters, setting the expectations, and everything that comes along with starting technically a new business. In essence, is really what's happening, right? Even though we're considering it more so like an department within the business because we already have a business, but getting the acquisition side and pivoting and how we do that, it's what's changing quite a bit.
What's the process like that on your side with you're taking calls, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah.
Like how do they come in?
So we're doing Facebook ads.
Okay.
Right. And then they come into our CRM, and because they're the ones that submitted their information, these are technically warm leads. I don't have to, hype them up or, try to get them to, give me the information that I need. It's a lot quicker of a process to know whether or not we're going to move forward. So they come in, basically, sometimes one call close them in that I already know what we're going to offer them. We give them what we're going to offer. We agree. If they agree, boom, we send them a contract right then and there on the phone. They sign it with me on the phone. And then now we just teamed up with another company that's going to be doing the disposition side.
Oh, okay.
Because I want to streamline it to where I'm doing more volume because, again, the ultimate goal is to find the properties that we want to keep. The novations and wholesaling and the flips are just gravy. I'm looking at it as one of those things where these are going to be good. They're going to bring in good amount of money, but the ultimate overarching long-term goal is to have a bunch of properties that we can Airbnb, we can maybe pad split, but a rental portfolio in the end. However, we decide to exit from it.
How do you determine which ones you want to keep out of that? Like, because you obviously have a strategy right now. You talk about Airbnb and other rentals and stuff. Is there certain ones you're honing in right now for?
Yeah, great question. So for me, because we're already here in Charlotte, North Carolina, we have we have 18 listings on Airbnb right now. I just want to plug in more to Charlotte. So if they're within Charlotte in an area where I believe they would perform well on Airbnb, even if it needs to get work done, ideally we get properties that need to get work done. Get hard money on it or do a novation, what we call a property or a split, equity split, where we actually partner with the seller, keep the loan in their name. We invest into it while the loan is in their name. And then we close once the renovations have been done. Then we assume the loan at the appreciated price. And then we go into it, and then we don't have to pay for the holding costs. We'll pay for the mortgage for however long needs to be, but the renovations. But that's one of the strategies that we're doing. Super big on just creative financing too, seller finance or what's it called, sub 2. Super big on that. Like I love those too. So just creative on those types of opportunities is what we're looking to do. Yeah.
What have you seen for like the appetite in the market right now for seller financing and sub 2? Because that obviously ebbs and flows, right? It depends on what's going on with rates and where people are at and type of demographics you're going after. Like, how have you seen that? Like, what's the temperature?
So creative finance right now is at an all-time high, I believe, simply because there's not that many buyers right now because the interest rates are so dang high, right? So because there is a lack of buyers, so many people are waiting around for the Fed to reduce the interest rates, or waiting for this $25,000 grant that they were supposedly thinking they were going to get. Whatever the reason that they're waiting for, it's creating a lack of buyers. But there's people that still want to move to another property, another state, another city, and they know that their property is sitting for months at a time, in the market, and they're not getting sold because of that lack. So they would be, it's like tired sellers. They're like, okay, I'm open to the idea of doing something non-conventional in order to get this property from underneath me. Maybe they've been paying 2 mortgages, 3 mortgages for however long. And then if we come in with an offer of saying, hey, how about we give you X amount down payment towards your equity, but we just assume your loan, and then we'll make payments towards your equity amount or whatever. They're like, oh, I didn't even know you could do that. Like, okay, they're more open to it because, again, they don't have all of these options. So that's very helpful for people like me that are privy on how to actually go about getting these types of deals. It's great because I have no competition at that point.
Yeah.
Right.
I feel like half the battle is probably just educating them on, I've never heard of sub-2.
Right.
How do you do that? Like,
100%.
talk to me more about that. And then that'll lead to completely different convos.
Yeah. And it's also educating myself, because I'm very, very new to the acquisition side, but educating myself and what I can offer to someone that would make sense for both of us. Because if I have multiple exit strategies on how to either buy the property to keep it or sell it, novate it, whatever, then I have more ammunition to capitalize on every single lead that comes in. The ultimate goal would be that we have, at least 5 different exit strategies. Mostly we'll stick to the ones that we know would perform well, like a Novation. We're very big on that. But that we have enough to where we can maximize every single lead, because every lead that comes in is costing us money. So that's kind of like the game plan there. But again, the ultimate goal is to sift through as many of those as possible to find the ones that we can keep.
Cherry pick the top.
Yep.
Yeah. So I want to kind of run it back a little bit for people that don't know you. Give us 60-second high level. Like, obviously, this is where kind of your venture is going now. But take me back a couple years, where you started. What's kind of your background? Obviously, we connected through Airbnb. I know a lot about that. But people who don't, kind of give us a rundown there.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I was a blue collar worker. I was in insurance back in Miami. I was working at Allstate Insurance. I was a manager. Eventually worked my way up to manager of a Allstate office selling insurance. Then I've always had, like most people have had in the back of my mind, to get into the real estate space. And for me at the time, it was like such a far out thing, because most people think that they need a bunch of capital in order to go ahead and get into the real estate game, right? You need to have enough money to buy your first property, to then cash flow $200, to then hopefully that happens again. You save up enough. So then I got intrigued with the whole idea of Airbnb. I would say like 2016-ish, because I stayed at one and I'm like, man, I feel like I could do this. And that was kind of like the first seed that was planted. And back in 2017, I started looking into, or early 2018, started looking into Airbnb Arbitrage. And that's what basically, long story short, became my into the real estate space. And for those that don't know what rental arbitrage is really just, instead of buying properties, you're renting them, furnishing them, and then listing them on Airbnb, obviously getting permission and all of that stuff, right? So that was my end. We moved from Miami to Charlotte, North Carolina. My wife and I, no kids at the time. And, we put our head down. We got our first property that we actually bought, new construction here, as a townhouse that we bought. And I secured a job in, Allstate here in Charlotte, just because we needed to have some steady income. And but we started the business, and that townhouse became our second Airbnb. We locked in a 1-bedroom apartment from Miami, sight unseen, and that would be, we did it the right way. We got the clause waived, like subletting clause and the advertising clause, and doing it the legit way. And that became our first Airbnb technically. So we moved into that, like the living room was all a mess. We used a bunch of our own stuff from Miami, made that the first Airbnb. And then once the newly built house was finished, we moved into that one, made that one live. And lo and behold, like literally less than 24 hours later, we got our first booking. And I was like, okay, something's happening here. It's working.
The concept is working.
The concept is working.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh my God. So then we set out, my wife and I set out the goal to just get 12, one a month, doing that. The beauty about that was that we were in an apartment community. So it was easier to get the second, third, fourth, because we kind of already pre-approved once you get your first one. And, back then it was way easier to do this, by the way. It's not as easy now because so many apartment communities are privy to this whole rental arbitrage thing. But yeah, my wife and I then moved out of that townhouse. We furnished it just the same as the apartment. And then we actually lived off our luggage for like 3 or 4 properties that we did the same exact. So we'll finish one property, lock in the next one, buy a mattress and stuff like that, live off our luggage to move into that one, make that one live, and so forth and so on. Much easier to do when you don't have kids.
Yeah.
My mentality though was like, man, I want to be there for my wife when she has our firstborn. I want to be there for her, and I want to be there for my baby too. I want to take paternity leave. That doesn't really much exist anymore. So that was like the driving factor for me personally. It's like, let's put in this work now. And then kind of go through that. So that was, 2019. Then we hit COVID, and unlike many other hosts, COVID for us it boosted our bookings because we were able to pivot from catering more so towards people that were coming into Charlotte to visit, but cater more towards like the locals that needed just a fresh set of 4 walls to look at, or needed to get work done while the family was at home and the kids were running around all day, every day. And, long story short, we got to that point of 12 listings, and I think we finished actually 13 listings, and kind of that's where we're at.
And then you currently still have those listed, right?
Yeah.
So that's that business kind of on autopilot, it seems like.
Yep.
You got some team members in place there, that's running, so that frees you up to do this new kind of department, if you will.
Exactly.
Yeah.
100%. So it's fully automated at this point. We have in-house cleaners now. We have, reservations coordinators, talking to all of the guests. And then now it's really my responsibility I still do a little bit of price strategy on a daily basis because I kind of enjoy it. I do a little bit of what I call Airbnb Tetris because a lot of our properties are in the same building or in the same neighborhood. We can move people around to maximize our, our occupancy, which has been great. Last year we did like 91% occupancy across all of our listings because of little strategies like that. And so yeah, it's a blessing that we have that kind of an autopilot. Now is how do we feed more properties and that fit within what our team can handle, but now buy them instead of renting them.
Gotcha. Yep. So you talk a lot about with you and your wife doing a lot of stuff together. When taking it kind of a step back from when you were working at Allstate, whose idea was it, and how'd you get the other person on board? Like, was it your idea and you got your wife on board, or was it you guys are sitting down one night having a glass of wine and it's like, hey, we need to do something different?
Yeah. So I've always been very entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
My wife has endured, living with an entrepreneur forever. So I've done a bunch of different businesses, and I've had an eco-friendly car wash. I had a clothing line at one point. So this new idea of real estate wasn't any different. And what I love about my wife is that she's like, let's do it. Like, we're still young. We have no kids. Let's see what sticks. Mm-hmm. So she was a super good till this day. I come up with crazy ideas, and I'm getting way better at, not having shiny object syndrome, which is very hard for an entrepreneur.
Very much so. Yeah.
And I've learned to now be able to focus and put aside the podcast, the content, and all of these different things so I can focus on this one thing. But it takes discipline for me to do it. It's not easy. I'm very much like, man, that sounds like a great idea. Let's go. Mm-hmm. My motto in life has always been, I'd rather live with a failure than a regret. I'd rather go at it, fail at it, it not work out than regret that I ever did it. But back to the point, like, my wife has always been on board. It was my idea, like everything else, but she also put in the work as well. She was the one cleaning the toilets in the beginning. She was the one, fixing the bed, because I was, working at Allstate for, I think it was like only like 2 months or 3 months when I said, you know what, we haven't supplemented our income yet, but I feel that if I go full throttle on this, we should be good. Mm-hmm. So we swapped. So she went and got a full-time job, and I focused strictly on the business, on communication and cleaning the units, and eventually, of course, we hired cleaners. But every single penny for that year, by the way, we reinvested back into the business. We didn't touch any of the money that the business made because we had that goal to get that many units. And it just became easier as we had more units because it was a snowball effect. The moment that we had one unit, it was no longer our own money that was going into getting the second one. And then when we got the second one, now we have 2 units working towards getting the third, and then 3 to get so it became way easier as we built it to grow fast.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, and I'm sure the apartment complex is like, oh yeah, you're good. You pay on time on your first 5. Like, yeah, we'll give you some more.
We're going on 7 years now with the same apartment communities.
And do they allow new Airbnb Arbitrage people in? That's
so
great.
You guys are grandfathered in.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. So like, we're not doing this with anybody else. You're only, because the thing is that we've been there for, actually for both, because we're in 2 different communities in the same neighborhood. Literally, they're in front of each other. They're competing technically. But we've been there longer than the management companies that currently manage the properties.
Oh, wow.
Have you had like a scare where a new management company comes in and they're like, oh, we're not doing this anymore?
Oh, yeah. And it's kind of like you have to repitch yourself.
Yeah.
But I already have that, I have that notion. And there's steps that I teach a lot of my students about how to go in there and pitch to these apartment communities. When there's a change in management, it's literally like you're starting all over again. But the only exception is that you already have some sort of agreement that gives you a little bit of leverage. But they can easily say, hey, after this, you're done. So it's kind of buttering them up a little bit, having that social skills to, appeal to them, say, hey, listen, look at the track record. If you want, if this is really what you want us to go, you're going to have 7 units vacant here shortly. And you're going to have to deal with 7 new tenants. And not just so we obviously paint the value of being able to team up with us in a business way because we're not your tenants. We are technically business partners, right? Like I'm providing something that you want, you have something for me that I want. We're partners in this. So yeah, there's a bunch of little like tips and tricks on how to maintain that relationship. It's super, super important.
Yeah. Have you thought about adding more there? Like it seems like the operations
they're capped out. They capped me out already.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Definitely. I always, every other month I was asked, hey, do you have anything hey, let me know. If you are struggling to get these units rented out, I will pick them up. But usually a lot of the apartment communities specifically, they have a cap on corporate leases. So that's actually one of the first questions that I have my students ask is if they have a cap in corporate leases when they're going to like scout to see if they can, get these properties rented. Because usually there's a 10% cap on corporate leases or however percentage. I don't know what, depending on the community, it might change. But yeah.
Do you have, I'm assuming 12-month lease there?
Yeah.
Could you just do like a 5-year lease?
I've tried.
They won't allow it.
What's the longest they'll do for you? 15 months or 12?
I think the longest we've had has been 15. Yeah. I think there was one that was like 13 months. Right now, actually, one of the communities that we have literally no lease in place anymore.
So it's just
for the last
right now?
Yeah. And for the last maybe 2 years. Actually, the first community that we moved into, which is where we moved like from Miami into, that one is the one that we've been there the longest. At some point during a management change, they said that basically they wanted to have the right to be able to bail out at any moment. But they kept our rents in place for the last 2 years too, until literally recently, the new manager called me and say, hey, we need to reevaluate these prices. You're paying less than market value. I'm like, hey, obviously I'm not going to call you to say, charge me more. But please, I do understand that if we're paying less, I'm more than willing to pay
just
what it's worth.
Let me stay in there.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I don't mind. At that point, it's but yeah, that's where we're at with that one. Yeah.
Sweet. So, Airbnb side, that was kind of the foot in the door in the real estate for you, and then now it's more on the buy and hold, kind of cherry pick some of these deals that are coming across your desk now. The one thing I want to hear more about is like, you started from like cleaning, now, then you hired cleaners, then you like furniture assembly, and then you probably hired some people to put together the furniture. Like you've done, it seems like every aspect, at least from the Airbnb side, it seems like you're trying to learn that side with the wholesale, the GC, like the flipping side as well, where it seems like that's probably the only way to do it from what I've seen.
Yeah.
You know, we used to do the same thing in our business. It was like we were the cleaners, we were the inspectors, we're property manager, we're salesperson, like every hat, in hopes to probably manage somebody better in the future, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's your focus now? Like, where do you kind of see the next steps for you with this thing?
So spot on what you said. I'm a big advocate of understanding every single role, if possible, that we could do internally first, so that then we can create the right SOPs and have the right people in place, know exactly what it takes to get the job done, et cetera. Sometimes that's not, viable, but whenever possible, I like to do that. Now also my time is worth more than it did back then. So if another situation happens where I need to clean, I probably won't. But, it's assessing where you're at and what your goals are. For me now, I'm learning the process of sales specifically in the area of real estate because I have the background in sales. And then also it's a good return on my time investment because one conversation that I have can equate to $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. So now that's worth it. Yep. But everything else, I'll still try to hire out whenever possible. But a lot of people don't have that luxury right off the bat because what they have is time, not the money to invest into other people. Mm-hmm. So yeah, right now just focusing strictly on the acquisition side so that I could hire people. As a matter of fact, I have my first interview. I'm interviewing someone that would be in our acquisitions team tomorrow that hopefully will do what I'm currently doing. We'll probably do it together for a certain period, but now I've been doing it for a month and a half, 2 months, which was the idea, the plan, to get the scripts down packed and, the different strategies, the contracts, everything kind of somewhat ironed out. But I'm still very much building the plane in the air in that I literally will lock up a deal, and I've done it, up until this moment. I'll lock up a deal at a certain price. I don't even know if the ARV is right. We'll figure it out, dude. We'll addendum it out. You know what I'm saying? So it's one of those things where it's like, when in doubt, lock it up. Either way, and then we figure out if we need to renegotiate or whatever. So that's kind of where I'm at, and I love that in that there's kind of a thrill for me in approaching it that way versus having analysis paralysis and like, man, I don't have the contract right, and I don't know if this price is right. I'm like, dude, I'm just going to figure it out, then run it by someone who has the knowledge and see if I'm good or not. And that's served me pretty well so far. So we'll see. I don't know, in a year, maybe we'll do another one of these.
You never know, though. You got to pull the trigger, right?
Exactly.
Do you think, all these other businesses you started and stuff is the thing that kind of pushed you, like you said, jumping right in? I don't know. I know sales. I don't know real estate sales, but I know sales. Yeah. It's been a month and a half. It seems like it's going well. I think you're closing some deals, locking down some stuff. Yeah. Do you think that just entrepreneur mindset, because a lot of people, like you said, I think it's perfect. Analysis paralysis. So many people get into that and they never do anything. And all of a sudden it's 5 years, 10 years from the road. And it's like, if you just started it and failed forward, right, you'd be successful. Do you think obviously all the other businesses helped you get to this point? Yeah,
for sure. Having a tougher skin from failing at multiple businesses and kind of like not caring about what the outcome is going to be and living by that model that I mentioned of, not regretting taking action, and even if I fail, knowing to live with it. Those different businesses that I did start definitely gave me like a tougher skin to kind of push through different things and be okay whatever the outcome is. Because the reality is that you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So I know it sounds cliche, and you hear it's probably going to get soundbited and put in Instagram right now, but it's so true, right? Like it doesn't get more real than that. A lot of my students don't succeed because they're trying to figure everything out. They'll consume the 60 video clips that I recorded for them to start their Airbnb business, but they haven't called anybody yet. I'm like, dude, what are you doing talking about how you're going to furnish your property when you haven't have a property yet? So yeah, I'm big on making sure that we take the action and kind of learn from, because there's no better teacher than actually doing the thing. Right? Like, I don't know about you guys, but I know most people, at least, they learn way faster when you're doing it. You can watch as many YouTube videos as you want. You can watch as many podcasts as you want and listen while you're working out at the gym or whatever. But until you actually go and do it, you're not going to, that's the biggest, way to learn, in my opinion.
Yeah. And so you talked about analyzing deals on the fly and things like that. You're a month and a half into it. You know,
Yeah.
how do you analyze those deals? Like you said, oh, I'm just gonna lock it down.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, and then figure it out afterwards. Like, but in the moment, how are you figuring out? Like, hey, this looks roughly right. How are you analyzing?
That's a great
it?
question, man. So how I'm doing it, and please help me if I'm doing it wrong. But how I'm doing it right now, I'll literally grab the address that they submitted.
Yep.
I'll throw it into Redfin, and then I just scroll down to where it says comparables, and then I see what these properties are selling for. I look at the property, the year that it was built, if it has any renovations. I try to find a property that recently sold that somewhat looks like that. See what the square footage cost was when they sold it, hopefully a month ago or 2 months ago, 3 months ago, or whatever, and then kind of determine the price that I would list it if I was to list it today. And then from that, if I'm going to be doing, say, a novation, then I'll say, okay, I'm going to reduce it 10%, which should cover closing costs, realtor fees, all of that stuff. Also our fee. And then maybe another $5,000, which we allocate to doing some minor repairs and all of these things. So if I'm at 10% of what the current value is, or 90% rather of current value, plus that $5,000, I should be good.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Because, dealing with wholesale kind of things, it's a similar aspect. Usually those margins are a lot different. There's a lot wider. So,
Right.
So you guys are actually in a better position, it sounds like, to purchase
Oh, yeah.
more properties at a higher value.
Oh, yeah. So wholesalers are going to need a way steeper discount in order to, like the Novation deals that we're locking up are no deals for a wholesaler. Meaning if a person owes too much on the property, wholesaler would be like, sorry, you can't. You're actually going to have to come out of pocket if we go to the closing table. But someone like me, I could say, hey, listen, we can, give you $5,000-10,000 after, you pay your loan off, and we still make our profit. And that's kind of like right now, a no-brainer for a lot of these people, especially those that have talked to a bunch of wholesalers, and they're like, they're lowballing me. They're giving me this, and you're giving me this. Like, yeah, let's roll.
Yeah, probably makes that conversation a lot easier. And like you said, it's an opt-in ad, so when you're talking to these people, it's more warm than it is cold.
Exactly.
Right.
Which to touch a little bit on that, I love that. I don't know that I would do any. I wouldn't say that I never would, but I love the idea of having my foot in the door, having the seller already vested in some way, that they're the ones reaching out to me, not the other way around. Because the conversation is totally different, right? So if I have a cold caller that's calling these people, and they're like, and I ask them, okay, so how much do you want for your property? I'm like, they're gonna be like, dude, you called me. What do you mean? How much are you gonna offer me? But now with the first question I ask these people is that, which makes it, it catches off guard, because I tell them, how much do you want for your home, to kind of create that baseline. As long as they give me a number, we're good, because now I know what I can work with, right? So just learning those things, and it's been a blast, honestly. I've enjoyed it more than I thought I would, but I don't want to stay there too long.
Yeah.
I want to be on the owner's box.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes some little tidbit for you, like you were saying, figuring out and analyze the deals. Polaris GIS for Mecklenburg County is one of the best resources that someone doesn't have access to MLS, because you can see all these properties are sold and off-market stuff.
Oh, nice.
They give you a ton of details, so check that out, because it's probably going to be the best way to accurately do it without having access to the MLS.
So throwing in the address in there, and it'll pop up.
Yeah, so what you can do is you can go in Polaris GIS, you can pull up anybody's property in Mecklenburg County. Every county has it. The Mecklenburg County one's just really good. And then you can click on 2024 sales, because not every sale is recorded through the MLS, right? There's off-market deals, especially with these wholesalers. And you'd be surprised, Open Door does a lot of off-market sales that no one knows about.
Right.
And then you can go in there and see, oh, well, I see this other comp in there that if you pulled off Redfin's probably not going to pull it, because they don't pull from deed records, they pull from MLS.
Got it.
So it kind of gives you even more. So if someone says, well, my house is worth this, it's like, well, actually, this house over here. So, or it might give you a better comp, saying, oh, well, I can actually pay this guy a little bit more because I see this other one over here. So,
another thing that I've been using, actually, that's served me well in a couple of times, is that I go down to where the tax assessment is, which is usually very low. And I let them know, I see that you actually paid taxes on this amount. Like, would you sell the property for that? And because they know that to be true, they'll at least, if they had a crazy high expectation, I can anchor them and then kind of work my way up. But if they say, yeah, I guess I would, or a little bit over that, I'm in the money, bro. Like I'm locking that thing up right then and there. But it's been super fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I used to, before the real estate thing, I had a little marketing agency. We did a lot of ads, but we had a cool automation. I don't know if you do something like this, but when a lead comes in, you can have it auto dial you, and you can save that number to say like new lead just hit submit on their Facebook, and it bridges a call. So you pick up the call, you click one, it calls the lead immediately. I don't know if you have something like that. It's through high level.
Yeah, I don't have something like that because my time is very like I'm not like sitting at my desk as an acquisitions dude. But we will have that. I would get that for my people, but I do get a text message every time there's a new lead. I get the text message. If I'm available, I'm calling it right then and
That's
there.
cool. Yeah.
Text message, email.
Put that with your salesperson, because it's wild. The amount of time. Even if you wait, some crazy stat I used to know. If you wait like 5 minutes, it drops
reduces
off the table. On
like
converting.
a cliff.
So
especially if you're in the wholesaling game. So for me, because these are inbound, a lot of them surprisingly are just starting their process of even considering selling. Some of them have already been, and they're just submitting to a bunch of different people. But a lot of the times they'll literally even double submit. They'll submit once, and I call it, and it's like, we had a conversation literally a week ago, and they submit again. I'm like, hey, I'm clearly figuring that you're trying to sell the house. Let's do something here.
Yeah.
So, but the to that point is that a lot of them haven't really talked about it yet. So it's we're the first company that we talk to, so which is nice too.
You should have them go talk to some wholesalers and then call you back.
Right.
That conversation will probably be a lot easier.
Well, it's funny you bring up that we talk about the wholesaling thing and stuff. I've dealt with a lot of wholesalers. I sell real estate as my main profession, right? There's a lot of wholesalers that don't have the sales skills. Like so to your point, knowing sales in general already, a lot of wholesalers get into it. It's like, oh, well, I don't need a license. It doesn't cost me anything. Let me jump into it. So you already have a leg up on all these people. Yeah. So really, you probably love it. It's like, oh, you already talked to them? Awesome. Yeah. This is great. This is perfect.
Right.
You know?
Either that, or we can just, have our best offer forward, where if they say, oh, let me think about it, and then they go and talk to a wholesaler, it's like, dude, Ivan offered me literally 30 grand more. Like, let me get back to him. Yeah. So it's kind of it's a volume play at some degree too, but also being able to give them that from the beginning is better, because the idea is that with, for instance, what we mainly push to get is a novation, and then if I'm able, I don't even have to worry about dispositions, because we actually list it on the MLS, so I don't have to subscribe to, say, like an investor lift or something like that to wholesale it. We could just throw it in the market, and it could be an in buyer, even if the property isn't in turnkey condition. Investors also buy from MLS all the time too. So that's kind of like the strategy we kind of gravitate towards. Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of pivot to, you mentioned earlier the cash flow from the arbitrage kind of fueled the growth to that. Now that's kind of on autopilot. The goal has always been to really own the asset, right?
Right.
Build your own portfolio, you and your wife's portfolio, for you and your fam. Like, I know you have one. I've seen the pickleball court coming in. Talk to me a little bit about how you got into that deal and what the
That's
what
a
the
great
plan is with
story,
that
actually, man. This is I need a document. I want to do like a full-on reel about this specific deal that you're talking about. This is a property that I bought beginning of this year? Yeah, beginning of this year. Bought it seller finance. So it was actually from one of my students that had a property here, but she lives in like Indiana or something like that. And she owned it outright. She was trying to flip it for whatever the reason. It didn't go through. But it's in a great location. It's near NODA. And long story short, bought it seller finance, 0% interest. Listen to this, 0% interest. Payments are $1,375 a month, all going towards principal, a 7-year balloon, right? So the idea was that I was going to, buy it. I was going to renovate it and keep it as an Airbnb in the very beginning. That was the goal. Then I, soon after found out as a newbie flipper or, investor that it's not a good idea to put all of your money into a property, that you should get other people's money, because then you're cash poor, especially when you're running a business, right, that needs that money. So long story short, we invested all this money into adding a new bathroom because it was a 3-1, so we made it a 3-2. I did some minor things to it to get it in shape, and then by the time I was actually done with it, I'm like, dude, I need to sell this. Like, I have too much money, in this thing. So I was trying to find investors that would partner with me to kind of like see my vision through. And, I listed it on the MLS. And after maybe a couple of weeks, I had an event that I went to in Vegas, WealthCon. Shout out to Ryan Pineda. And we went out there, and I basically met an investor that was trying to get into, well, he wasn't even really an investor at the time. He was just trying to break into the real estate space, but he's a physician. All his asset really was the fact that he had capital. He didn't have much time. And I kind of told him about the vision that I had. It has a big backyard. I want to add a pickleball court in the back, a pool, a little putt-putt section, whatever. And then mind you, up until this moment, I've only catered mostly to, working travelers, travel nurses, kind of like competing more so with hotels versus actual like Airbnb experiences. Mm-hmm. So this would technically be my first, go at actual Airbnb experience, as most people know it. So I pitched him this whole thing. He kind of vetted me, making sure that I was, legit or whatever. Turns out that same day I was on the panel on stage. So I was like, okay, this dude is legit, right? So it helped me a lot. So long story short, man, it was from God. I don't know if you guys are, believe in God or religious or anything, but I was praying. Because I was legit in a pit in my business. Like I could potentially lose my business because that's how much money I had into this deal. And if something were to happen, I wouldn't be able to have the cash flow to kind of, get us out of it. Mm-hmm. So it was a pretty, I've never seen my bank account as low as it was in the years that I've been doing this business. So it was one of those moments like, Lord, you better send somebody, all right? And then sure enough, man, so basically what ended up happening, I listed the property. He bought out 50% of the property, in essence, paid me back the equity that I had after renovating it. So I think I had it for $390 or something like that. Anyways, I ended up making like $100,000 after paying myself back on the deal, 50-50 split. But the deal also was that he would invest into finishing the backyard, which wasn't finished yet. So $95,000 would go into the experience in the backyard, which we're currently working on. We already just finished the pouring the concrete, getting cured and all that. They're working on permits right now for the pool. So it's going to be a super cool experience. But, the idea is that, 50-50 owners on the home have no money into the deal at all anymore. And, that property should cash flow pretty nicely once it's all said and done, because I don't know of many properties here in Charlotte that have a pickleball court that's like legit.
I don't know any. Yeah. I don't know any. We were talking about this before. It's like, especially because you're in the Airbnb space, obviously, there's just, people look for experiences with that.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because, we have Raleigh pickleball that started, right? Mm-hmm. So it's growing a lot. You're seeing an investment in that sport. Yep. Obviously it's funny because it was kind of an older person sport for the longest time.
Yep.
And now it's grown to
catching fire, man. I love it.
Especially for people that weren't even into tennis, right? Like you would think, a lot of people that are into tennis.
It's way easier to play. That's why.
Yeah.
I ran across a stat. You're really going to appreciate this. I didn't know this till last week. We had a meeting with Revity Redefined. They do like interior designs. They brought a stat. They underwrote like 2 of our properties that we're thinking about redesigning and like adding pools, these things. They said in Charlotte specifically, there was maybe 200 listings that had pools. It was it was like 180, somewhere in there. And on average, those generated 30% more revenue with just a pool.
Wow.
Obviously, you can't say, okay, if I add a pool, I'm going to generate 30% more. Right. Typically, the nicer quality properties are going to have that amenity that generate 30%. But I was like, holy crap. Like I knew it generated more revenue, but I didn't know how much.
How much more, yeah.
30% is like huge.
Mm-hmm. Huge.
So that's not even including pickleball. Right. It was like pool and sauna.
Oh, sauna.
Fire pit was number 3. Those were the top 3 cash flowing amenities in Charlotte specifically. Fire pit was very small. The sauna, I think maybe 30 or 40 had it in the entire market. So I was like, holy cow.
Wow.
The property that I bought luckily has a pool. I'm going to add a fire pit after that.
Yeah, heck yeah, dude. It's easy. It's easy.
Yeah.
Add-on.
Yeah.
Super.
Yeah.
Yeah, your return on that's huge.
Yeah.
Because it's so cheap.
It's so cheap.
So we're going to have a pool with a hot tub, fire pit, pickleball court. We finished the attic, which was, I kind of documented that. We finished the attic. That's going to be like a game room / like, kind of like, I want to go with the theme of somewhat of a tree house, but not really. But it's for the kids to kind of enjoy a space up there. So we finished that, and it's gonna be sick, man. I didn't really fully crunch the numbers. Is a lot of it was mostly like gut instinct. I'm like, dude, there's nobody else. There's people paying to play at Rowley, $55, $75 an hour to play each. So imagine if you have your own space that you can play as much as you want.
Yeah, just
with no interruptions.
Just list the pickleball court in the days that it's not booked.
Tier space, yep.
Yeah,
that's part of it too. There's people that are listing their pools.
Yeah, see that. That's expensive too if you try to go rent it, right?
Yeah.
It's expensive. There's a lot of liability in that too. So it makes sense,
so I'm looking forward to that. So the idea is that a proof concept with this property, right? It should do really, really, really well. I mean, right now, actually, that's another. That deal gets juicier. So. Locked in a midterm renter that was interested in one of my other properties. The one that I actually told you guys that I bought. It was a ground up townhouse that we bought when we first moved out here. And they were interested in that one, but it wasn't available to be moved in when they wanted it. So I worked out a deal with them to where they can live in this house that at the time wasn't fully done yet. We were doing the little things to make it ready. Like they moved in and we didn't have a washer and dryer. They got delivery of washer and dryer anyways. We made it move in ready as best as we can, and they're paying like $3,200 a month while they consent to allow us to continue to work in the backyard. That's awesome. It's already cash flowing, and we're just waiting. So the idea is that once we're close to finish, we'll move them to the property that they originally wanted to move to, and then we can bring in the clients that will spend the $400-500 a night for the full property when we're done.
When are you expecting to be done with the property? Be ready to go fully?
Dude, so it's been a mission with the inspection. I've been going back and forth with the contractor, and hopefully we get cleared on inspection in another week or so, and then it's going to be like 3 weeks to get it done. So let's call it a month from now, ideally. Yeah. I'll try to maybe do some sort of event where we'll invite some local influencers and play some, get some tacos out there or something like that, make it a thing so that locals know. Because ideally it's going to be, a lot of locals are going to want to, stay here because if they have family coming in, they don't have the space at their place, but they want to play pickleball or they want just a space to kind of like hang out and just play pickleball all freaking weekend or week long, however long. I think but again, it's all really, this is kind of like the test pilot. And then hopefully this property that I told you guys about off camera that we locked up, which we're also going to be keeping to our portfolio based on how that does, will determine whether or not we're going to add a pickleball court and all that stuff to that one as well. Yeah. Because it's a big investment. A pickleball court is going to run us $35,000 or so after it's all said and done.
Use it as a case study. See if it really, what's the revenue added per ROI.
Yeah, and it worked out great too because it's not my risk technically as far as my money in it. But I'm very optimistic in that this property I think is going to do really, really, really well. Yeah.
Sweet. Well, I mean, kind of wrapping up here. What I know we talked a lot about the past, a little bit about the present. Like, where do you see Ivan in 5 years? Like where get your crystal ball out. Like what do you where do you think this trajectory looks like in 5 years?
5 years, man. I think that for instance, right now we're at like 18 Airbnbs, all but 2 are properties that we own. At 5 years, I would assume that we have no more rental arbitrage deals and that we kind of phase them out and focus strictly on the properties that we own. We also probably will be catering more towards experience-based Airbnbs because those are the ones that generate much more money. Bigger properties too. For the longest, we've been in the space of, like I said, studio apartments, 1 bedrooms, which is what working travelers and travel nurses really need, which is great. I love that space because it doesn't require much barrier to entry. It's much lower investment. And it works to get your foot in the door. But because we've, done a couple of things correctly, we can start looking at the bigger fish and kind of put that same effort in that. I've dabbled into the idea of maybe managing other people's properties and all of that. And for me, it didn't make sense because it's not easy to manage properties, especially when it comes to the short-term rental space. It's much harder than it is just a regular management company. But if I'm going to only make a certain percentage, on the revenue of a property, I'd rather go out and get the property myself and get the full shebang, right? So, but other ways to innovate as far as acquisitions. I'm not married to the idea of doing just Airbnb. I love midterm rentals. Now we're probably going to be testing with pad split, which I don't know if you guys know what that is, but
I've heard of it.
but basically is splitting the home and creating. Basically, you rent the by the room, but then you can turn a living room that has a window into another bedroom. So it doesn't have to be a conventional house. It could be just a house that has a bunch of rooms. The original, call it the original 3. So for instance, in our case with the townhouse, which is we're going to test it in eventually at some point, it already has 3 bedrooms, but the living room, we can add another bedroom. So just basically putting temporary drywall, adding a bed, some nightstands, and ready to go, right?
There's a 8-bedroom for sale in West Charlotte that I was looking at
Oh, really?
yesterday.
There you go. You could probably add like 2 more to it.
Yeah, probably.
And you could, and I've talked to the team of Pad Split, the people that are in charge of Charlotte and whatever, South Carolina and stuff. And there's a demand. There's people that are waiting for it. So gonna test it with that too, and that gives me another way to yet again keep other properties that maybe I don't want to have this full-on experience for Airbnb, but has a nice little yard in front, whatever, people can access their rooms, and that could be an inn too, without having to invest so heavily into it. Because the route that we're taking with the Airbnbs now, it's going to be very much like an investment, a big investment to get it to where it needs to be with the backyard experience and all these wallpapers and all that. When it comes to Pad Split, you don't have to do any of that really. It's just very minimalistic, and people bring their own stuff. Yeah. So, dabbling into that idea as well, and seeing what else comes from building this business of the acquisition side. Like I said, even though the overarching goal is to cherry pick the properties that we want to keep, it's going to be a huge business in of itself for novations, wholesaling, and all of that good stuff too. So I'm excited for that. So I would say 5 years from now, we flip it where we have 18, 20 properties that we own, and we're doing, 6 figures plus a month in, novations, wholesale, and stuff like that.
Sweet.
Yeah, that's the goal. We'll check in 5 years.
I love it.
We'll have you back on before that.
Yeah.
So don't worry.
Yeah, man.
Cool, man. And where can people go to find out a little bit more about you and what you got going on, man?
Mostly Instagram, but YouTube at Ivan Tejeda. It's my handle. I was able to get that my name.
There you go.
Finally. Yeah, mostly there. I pretty much share all my stuff there. I actually have an Instagram channel, broadcast channel inside of my Instagram where I post all of my real estate related stuff. Mostly because I realized that for whatever the reason, I didn't get much reach. When I posted real estate related things, it was like 300, 400 views. And then when I posted anything that had to do with my wife or kids, a freaking million. I'm like, okay, I'll stick to that. And then just make sure that people have something as far as real estate goes inside of that thread. So it's fun because I'm documenting there the first flip that we're doing, which we bought off of a wholesaler. Actually, it wasn't even a property that we got. And we should be wrapping that one up in a week. So that's good. We should be listing it here shortly too. And everything real estate related and pretty much everything we were talking about there here, I'm posting it there. So
yeah, I'm part of the broadcast channel. Good stuff, man. I'm like, man, what is Ivan up to today? That's good, man.
Yeah, I try to share as much as I can there.
Yeah, I love it.
That's awesome.
Authenticity goes a long
People
way.
love that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. I appreciate you jumping on, coming out.
Thank you for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Till next time.
Till next time.
Take care.